The emergency session of the Galactic Council had devolved into chaos. Representatives from 43 species shouted over one another, their translation matrices struggling to keep pace with the cacophony of desperate voices. The Ravagers have taken the Kepler arm. Ambassador Thelos of the Centauri Collective slammed 3 of his appendages against the podium. 17 worlds. Billions dead. They're unstoppable. High Chancellor Vryn, a being of pure crystalline energy, pulsed with barely contained panic. Our combined fleets can't even slow them down. Every engagement ends the same way, total annihilation. We need reinforcements. We need the Elders. We need the humans. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to Ambassador Kale, whose species had been the first to encounter the mysterious Ravagers 6 cycles ago. His people had been among the most advanced military powers in the galaxy. Now, they were nearly extinct. The humans? Thelos's voice dripped with contempt. Those primitives who barely achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They have no shields capable of withstanding directed energy weapons. Their ships are slow. Their weapons are kinetic projectiles. He practically spat the last words. Desperate times, Kale replied simply. The vote was close. In the end, desperation won. The UNSS Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the battle zone 3 days later. She was, by galactic standards, an absurdity. Her hull was thick, absurdly thick, layers of composite armor instead of the elegant energy shields every civilized species employed. Her weapons were railguns and missile tubes, relics of a more primitive age. She displaced barely 1/10 of the mass of a standard Centauri cruiser. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge, studying the tactical display. His crew of 270 souls represented humanity's answer to the Council's plea. Not an armada. Not a fleet. One ship. Sir, Lieutenant Commander James Park reported from Tactical. Long-range sensors are picking up debris fields. Lots of them. And energy signatures consistent with Council fleet formations, or what's left of them. Analysis. The Ravagers use coherent energy beams that overload shield matrices. Once shields collapse, the beam cuts through the hull like butter. Average engagement time, 4 minutes from first contact to total destruction. Park paused. Sir, Council ships are significantly more advanced than ours. Webb nodded slowly. Noted. Send a message to the Council fleet. Tell them we're en route to their position. And tell them to stay behind us. Behind the bridge viewport, space seemed calm. But Webb had seen the intelligence reports. The Ravagers were a hive-minded species that absorbed the technology of every civilization they destroyed. They were adapting, evolving, becoming more deadly with each victory. They had never encountered defeat. They had never encountered humanity. The Ravager swarm appeared 3 hours later, 47 vessels of varying sizes, all biomechanical nightmares that pulsed with stolen technology. The Council's remaining fleet hung back, as ordered, their crews watching with a mixture of hope and pity. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, the communications officer announced. Admiral Thelos is requesting we reconsider our approach vector. He says we're too close to the enemy formation. Tell the Admiral we appreciate his concern, Webb replied. Tactical, weapons status. All railgun batteries charged and ready. Missile tubes 1 through 16 loaded with Mark 7 warheads. Point defense systems online. Good. Now, listen carefully. I want silent running. Kill everything except life support and weapons. No active sensors. No communications. Make us a hole in space. Sir. They've never fought an opponent without shields, Webb explained. Every species they've encountered broadcasts energy signatures like a lighthouse. Their sensors are tuned to detect shield matrices and power plants. So we're going to give them nothing to see. The Indomitable went dark. On the Ravager command vessel, the collective mind processed the battlefield. 43 enemy ships detected, their shield frequencies already analyzed and catalogued. Victory would come within the hour, followed by assimilation of their technology. But there was something else. A void in space where sensors registered, nothing. Not even background radiation. The Mind dispatched 3 scout vessels to investigate the anomaly. They never reported back. The railgun slugs that destroyed them were simple tungsten rods accelerated to 5% of light speed. No energy signature. No warning. Just kinetic fury that vaporized the scout ships before they could even register the threat. The collective mind recoiled in confusion. What weapon left no sensor footprint? The Indomitable emerged from the debris field like a predator revealing itself. Her railgun spoke again, and again, and again. Each shot was carefully calculated, no wasted energy, no fancy beams that could be adapted to or absorbed. Just simple, brutal mathematics. Mass times velocity equals dead aliens. The Ravagers adapted quickly, rotating their ships to present thicker armor. But armor meant nothing against weapons designed to punch through planetary bedrock. They tried to close distance, but the Indomitable's point defense network, a spider's web of rapid-fire cannons, shredded anything that came within 5,000 kilometers. "They're trying to surround us," Park reported. "Let them," Webb replied. "Launch missiles. Full spread. Pattern Delta." 16 missiles streaked away from the Indomitable, each one a cylinder of high explosives wrapped around a fragmenting warhead. The Ravager's sensors, still calibrated for energy weapons, barely registered the primitive chemical rockets. The missiles detonated simultaneously, each one releasing thousands of ball bearings traveling at orbital velocities. It was an ancient tactic called a claymore, used by human soldiers centuries ago. At interstellar velocities, those ball bearings became shotgun blasts that shredded through the Ravager formation. 14 vessels died in an instant. The collective mind experienced something it had never known in its 3,000-year existence: fear. 2 hours later, it was over. The Ravager swarm was gone, reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The Indomitable hung in space, her hull scarred and pitted but intact. She had expended 70% of her ammunition and taken minor damage from debris impacts. Not a single crew member had been lost. On the Council flagship, Admiral Fellows stared at his displays in disbelief. How? They have no shields. No energy weapons. They should have been destroyed in the first exchange. Ambassador Kale, watching from the observation deck, allowed himself a small smile. "You still don't understand. The humans don't build ships to destroy planets or demonstrate power. They build them to win wars. There's a difference. But their technology is centuries behind ours." "Perhaps," Kale replied. "But they've spent those centuries learning one thing we forgot: how to actually fight." The message from Captain Webb to the Galactic Council was brief. "One ship, as requested. We're ready for the next engagement. Send coordinates. And gentlemen, you might want to reconsider your shield-dependent doctrine. In a real war, fancy technology is just another thing that can break. Humans learned that lesson the hard way, a long time ago. We'd be happy to teach it to you. Regards, Captain Marcus Webb, UNSS Indomitable." The Galactic Council would eventually send more requests for help. And humanity, having finally found its place in the galaxy, would answer. Not with overwhelming force or superior technology. But with something far more dangerous, the hard-won experience of a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing one another, and had finally found a better target. The galaxy would never be the same.